My husband died in another woman's apartment, but his family still expected me to pay for the funeral. When his mother tried to charge the funeral deposit to my card, she learned one painful truth. The wife they betrayed wasn't their safety net anymore. 3 days after my husband died in another woman's apartment, his mother slid my credit card across a funeral home desk like she owned it. She had just ordered a mahogany casket, the premium flower package, and a catered reception for 200 guests, $23,000. She was wearing her good pearls, the ones she saved for occasions where people might be watching, and she had said only the best for my son 4 times that morning while dabbing at eyes that hadn't produced a single tear. The funeral director, a patient man named Walter Brandt, picked up the card, and what happened in the next 30 seconds is the reason I'm telling you this story. But I can't start there. If I start there, you'll think this is a story about a credit card. It isn't. It's a story about a hallway. Thursday night, 11:38 p.m., my phone rang. Riverside Memorial Hospital. A voice told me my husband, Aaron, had suffered a cardiac arrest and I needed to come now. I remember standing in my kitchen in one sock, asking the voice to repeat itself because Aaron was 41 and ran 5 miles every morning and had told me 6 hours earlier that he'd be working late at a client's office downtown. I drove there in 11 minutes. I don't remember any of the lights. At the entrance to the ICU waiting area, a nurse stepped into my path. Her badge said, Marisol Vega, charge nurse. She was maybe 55, with the kind of steady eyes you only get from 20-plus years of telling people the worst news of their lives. She confirmed later it was 22. Are you Nora, Aaron Calloway's wife? Yes. Where is he? Is he? She put a hand on my arm and lowered her voice. He's with the cardiac team. They're working. But before you go in there, I need you to know something, because I don't think anyone else is going to tell you. She glanced down the hall, then back at me. Your husband didn't come in alone. He collapsed at a private residence across town. The woman who lives there called 911. She rode in behind the ambulance. I stared at her. My brain did the thing brains do. It reached for the most innocent explanation on the shelf. A client, a coworker, a neighbor of a client. Okay, I said. Thank you. Mrs. Calloway. She held my eyes for one more second. Walk in there with your eyes open. Then she stepped aside and I walked into the waiting room and my eyes were open and it didn't matter because nothing could have prepared me for what was sitting in it. His whole family was already there. His mother, Denise, in the corner seat she somehow always claimed no matter whose house or hospital it was. His father, Frank, standing by the window with his arms crossed. His younger brother, Kyle, scrolling his phone. And beside Denise, close beside her, knees almost touching, a woman I had never seen in my life. Dark hair, a wrinkled silk blouse, the kind you don't wear to sit at home alone. She was sitting with my husband's family like she had a seat at the table, like she'd had one for years. Denise looked up at me and said one word. Finally. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm so sorry. Not even my name. Finally. Like I was the one who'd shown up somewhere I didn't belong. I looked straight at the stranger. I'm his wife. Who are you? Silence. The woman looked at the floor. Not guilty, just inconvenienced. The way you look when a meeting runs long. She didn't say her name. She didn't say anything at all. Denise stood and physically stepped between us. This is not the time. She's been Aaron's friend for years, Frank said from the window, in the tone men use when they want a subject closed. It means nothing. Years. Nobody flinched at that word. Nobody rushed to correct it, or soften it, or explain how the friend of years had never once in all those years come to a dinner, a birthday, a Christmas. Kyle didn't even look up from his phone. I want to tell you I understood right then. I didn't. Understanding is a luxury. And at 11:52 p.m. on a Thursday, with my husband's heart stopped somewhere behind a set of double doors, I couldn't afford it. So I sat down in a plastic chair across from a woman in a wrinkled silk blouse, and I waited, and no one in my husband's family said one word to me for the next 4 hours. At 4:16 a.m., a doctor came out and told us Aaron's heart had given out a second time, and that this time, they couldn't bring him back. Denise wailed. Frank pressed his palm flat against the window glass and left it there. The woman in the silk blouse covered her mouth and turned away. And Denise, I watched this happen, reached over and squeezed her hand. I sat in the plastic chair and felt nothing at all. My husband was dead. My marriage, I was beginning to suspect, had been dead longer, and the woman he'd spent his last night alive with had not said one single word to me. She was gone before sunrise. She never did tell me her name. I found it out myself 39 hours later, and by then I'd found out a great deal more. Here's what you need to know about me, so the rest of this makes sense. I'm a senior escrow officer at a title company. I've done it for 14 years. My entire job is paperwork that has to match the story people tell about it. Deeds, wire instructions, payoff statements, signatures. When a document and a story disagree, the document is telling the truth, and my job is to notice before the money moves. I have caught wire fraud twice. I have refused to close on a house because a notary stamp was 6 days out of date. I am, professionally, the least romantic person you will ever meet about a piece of paper. And for 11 years of marriage, I turned that part of my brain off the moment I walked through my own front door, because that's what trust is, I thought. Trust is not auditing the person you sleep next to. Aaron freelanced. Marketing consulting, brand strategy, whatever the year's word was. For the first 3 years, I believed the work was slow to ramp up. For the next 5, I believed we were a team and teams don't keep score. Here is what the not keeping score looked like, in numbers, because numbers are what I have instead of poetry. My salary paid the $12,010 mortgage. My salary paid the utilities and the property taxes and both cars. The groceries Denise ordered twice a week, delivered to her house, not ours. Went on my card because 3 years ago, Aaron sat on the edge of our bed and begged me to make his mother an authorized user. She's on a fixed income, nor it's just groceries. Frank's truck insurance, $214 a month, came out of my checking account, set up temporarily in 2021. Kyle's phone line wrote on our plan, $95 a month since he was 26. He's 33. Every one of those arrangements arrived the same way. Aaron, apologetic, hand on the back of his neck. Just for a little while. They'd do it for us. You know how mom is. I knew how mom was. I just thought I was family. So when Denise showed up at my house at noon on Friday, my husband dead for 8 hours, I assumed she was there to grieve with me. My sister Megan had driven up from 2 hours away and was making tea nobody drank. Denise sat down at my kitchen table, took out an actual notepad, and started talking about money. Aaron wanted the family plot next to his grandfather. I've already called Brandt and Sons. The funeral home needs a deposit to hold the date. You'll handle it, obviously. Megan set the teapot down hard enough that the lid jumped. He was your son. Denise's mouth went tight. That little drawstring pull I'd seen 100 times across 100 dinner tables. She was his wife. She controls the accounts. And God help me, she was right about that. I controlled the accounts because I built every single one of them. That night I couldn't sleep, which is how I ended up on the couch at 1 a.m. with the family iPad, the one that lived on the kitchen counter for recipes and shopping lists. Aaron never logged out of anything. In 11 years, I had never once gone looking. I told myself I just wanted to see his face. Photos, that's all. I opened the photo app and the first image in the shared stream was a selfie he'd taken Tuesday at a restaurant I'd never been to. And there was a hand on his shoulder with dark red nail polish, and my thumb kept moving before my brain could vote. Her name was Camille Adler. It was right there in his messages, pinned to the top, above me, above his own mother. 2.5 years. I read for 4 hours. I sat very still with a mug of tea going cold in my lap, and I read the archaeology of my own marriage. Restaurant receipts forwarded to his email, table for 2 every second Thursday, the night he played pickup basketball. Weekend trips he'd called conferences, Austin, Palm Springs, a lake house in October, a gold bracelet, $1,500 charged to our joint card 14 months ago. The same month I picked up overtime closings on Saturdays so Christmas wouldn't go on a credit card. I remembered him asking why I seemed tired. Then I found the hotel receipt dated April 9th of last year, our 10th wedding anniversary. He told me he was in Denver for a client launch and he'd called me that night from the road, and I'd sat alone at our kitchen table with takeout and told him it was fine. We'd celebrate when he was back. The hotel was 20 minutes from our house. My hands had been steady for 4 hours. They stopped being steady then. I set the mug down because I didn't trust myself to hold it, and I walked to the bathroom and stood over the sink for a while, and nothing came up, and I went back to the couch. I'd like to tell you I cried. What I actually did was open his email and keep reading because I'm an escrow officer, and when the document and the story disagree, you pull the whole file. The whole file was worse. I found the group chat a little after 5 a.m. It didn't have a cute name. It was just a thread. Denise, Frank, Kyle, and Camille, the 4 of them, going back 22 months. Birthday wishes. Happy birthday, Camille, from Kyle. Last summer. Dinner plans. The 4 of them, plus Aaron, at a steakhouse in March. A night I now remembered because Aaron had told me it was Frank's retirement dinner. Men only. Denise had sent Camille a heart emoji on March 14th in response to a photo of Aaron I'd never seen, laughing in someone else's kitchen. These people sat at my Thanksgiving table every year. They ate a turkey I paid for and complimented the stuffing and hugged me at the door. Denise always held the hug an extra second. Always said, "You're so good to us, sweetheart." And every single one of them drove home knowing, not suspecting, knowing, coordinating. They had guarded my husband's secret like a family heirloom, and I was the only person at the table who didn't know what we were all protecting. I made a strange sound alone in my living room, not crying, closer to a laugh with the middle taken out of it. Then I did what I do at work when a file smells wrong. I stopped reading like a wife, and I started reading like an escrow officer. Wife me wanted to scream. Officer me got a legal pad and started a timeline. Saturday, I pulled statements. All of them. Going back 3 years. Because you don't audit the transaction, you audit the account. That's how I found the Visa. A card in my name, my full legal name, my social security number, that I had never opened, never seen. Opened 19 months ago, set to paperless statements. Routed to an email address that was almost mine. My first initial, my last name, 1 extra period, balance $6,847. The charges were a map of their relationship, the restaurants, 2 of the conference hotels, a day spa in Scottsdale. Minimum payments made every month on time from an account I now recognized as the one Aaron called his business float. I sat there and tried to build him an exit. Maybe I'd co-signed something and forgotten. I don't forget accounts. I have never once in my life forgotten an account. Maybe it was a mistake, a mixed up digit. The application PDF was in his email. My name, my social, my date of birth. Employer listed as homemaker, which, of everything, and I recognize this is absurd, of everything. That word put a sound in my ears like a struck glass. There's a plain term for opening a line of credit in someone else's name. It doesn't get softer because you were married to her. My stomach dropped in the specific way it does at work, maybe twice a year, when I realize a closed closing I'm about to fund is dirty. Except at work, it isn't my name on the paper. I made a note on the legal pad, dated it, and kept pulling. Sunday, I opened his email drafts folder because in 14 years of reading other people's files, I have learned that the truth lives in drafts. Sent mail is what people decided to say. Drafts are what they meant. There were two things in that folder that mattered. The first was a change of beneficiary form from Cornerstone Life, the $250,000 term policy we'd taken out on Aaron 9 years ago, back when the mortgage was new, and I'd insisted, because that is who I am. The form was filled out, saved as a PDF, dated 3 weeks before he died. Under Remove Beneficiary, my name. Under Add Beneficiary, hers, Camille Adler, 100%. It was never submitted. He saved it, and then he waited, and then his heart quit in her apartment before he got around to it. The second thing was a screenshot he'd saved of a text thread with his mother, from April. I've read it enough times that I can type it from memory. Denise, don't do anything until your name is on more of the accounts. You have no idea how these things go. Denise. And whatever you spend on C needs to stay off the joint card. I told you about the bracelet. Sloppy. Aaron, I know. Working on it. Denise. Slow and careful. She'll sign anything if you're sweet about it. She always has. I read that last line standing at my kitchen counter, in the house my salary paid for, and something in my chest went very quiet and very cold, like a machine switching from one mode to another. They hadn't just kept his secret. His mother had been coaching him on how to strip me before he left, using a scouting report on my character that she'd assembled across a decade of holding my hugs 1 second too long. She'll sign anything if you're sweet about it, so I didn't scream. I didn't post anything. I didn't call a single one of them. I got quiet, and I got busy, and if you have ever wondered what an escrow officer looks like when she finally audits her own marriage, I'll tell you, it looks like nothing at all. It looks like a woman drinking coffee and making 3 copies of everything. One for the file, one for the lawyer, one for the day somebody claims the first 2 don't exist. Monday, 9 a.m. I was the first customer through the doors at First Meridian Credit Union. I asked for the branch manager by name, Tom Reyes, 15 years with the branch, the man who'd handled our refinance, and I put a folder on his desk and told him my husband had died Friday morning. He gave me his condolences, and they were real. And then he did his job, which is what I needed from him more than sympathy. The joint accounts carried rights of survivorship, which meant that as of 4/16 Friday morning, every dollar in them was legally mine. I closed them all. I opened new accounts in my name only, new numbers, no history. I removed every authorized user from every card where I was the primary. Denise came off the grocery card at 9:41 a.m. I watched him click it. I canceled the cards themselves and ordered replacements. I flagged the fraudulent Visa, and Tom printed the dispute paperwork himself and walked me through where to sign. At the end, he squared the stack of papers, and he asked the question they have to ask. You're sure about all of this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He nodded once, like a man closing a vault, and shook my hand. Tuesday morning, I sat in the office of Diane Kessler, a probate and estate attorney with 26 years of practice and an office above a bakery, so that the worst week of my life smells, in my memory, faintly of cinnamon. I gave her the timeline, the statements, the drafts folder, all of it. She read for 20 minutes without a word, flipping pages with one finger, and then she took her glasses off. Okay, 3 things, and I need you to hear all 3. She held up a finger. 1. The funeral. In this state, funeral expenses are a debt of your husband's estate. They are not your personal debt. Nobody can obligate you. Not his mother, not the funeral home, nobody. Unless you sign the goods and services authorization yourself. So whatever happens tomorrow, you do not sign anything. If they want mahogany, the person who signs for mahogany pays for mahogany. Second finger. 2. The Visa is identity theft and forgery. His death doesn't launder it. You file a police report and an FTC affidavit. We dispute it under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and the bureaus block it from your file. You'll want the report number before you dispute. Third finger. 3. That iPad does not leave your possession. Not to his mother, not to anyone. We image it this week. If anybody asks you for his devices or his papers, the answer is, through my attorney, and then you call me. I asked her if it was normal, what I'd found. She looked at me over the folder for a moment. Mrs. Calloway, I've done this for 26 years. The dying is normal. The rest of it, she tapped the screenshot of Denise's texts. The rest of it is a Tuesday for me and a tragedy for you, and I'm sorry it's yours. That afternoon, I took the Visa file to the police station. The desk officer, a young guy with a buzz cut, skimmed my paperwork and shrugged before I'd finished my second sentence. Husband and wife, ma'am. Joint finances. Honestly, this reads like a civil matter. You'd want an attorney. The application has a forged signature and my social security number, and I have the original PDF with metadata, I said, in my closing table voice, and a woman 2 desks back looked up from her monitor. Her name was Detective Marla Nguyen, Financial Crimes Unit, 12 years. She came over, read the application against my driver's license signature for about 90 seconds and said, a forged application is a forged application. Deceased doesn't erase it. The account's still open and it's still reporting under her number. She took the report herself. Before I left, she handed me a case number on the back of her card and said, you'd be surprised how many people apologize to me for filing these on family. Don't be one of them. I put the card in the folder with everything else. 3 copies. Tuesday, quietly, the rest of it happened too. The truck insurance policy I'd been funding for Frank. Canceled, effective end of the cycle. Kyle's phone line, removed from my plan. The streaming accounts Denise ran every night of her life on my password. Signed out of all devices, passwords changed, changed, profiles deleted. I didn't announce one word of it. I let every one of them keep smiling at me. The funeral meeting was Wednesday at 11, and Denise had spent the weekend telling relatives that Nora is handling the arrangements, and I had spent the weekend letting her. Tuesday night, 7:40, my doorbell rang, and then rang again, and then a third time before I reached it. Denise stood on my porch with her car still running in the driveway. "I need Aaron's things," she said. No hello. His iPad, his laptop, his papers. A mother should have her son's things. In 11 years, Denise had never once expressed interest in a single piece of paper belonging to her son. I looked at her for a moment, really looked, the way Officer Me looks at a signature, and I watched her eyes flick past my shoulder, into the house, toward the kitchen counter where the iPad usually lived. She knew what was on it. Of course she knew. She was in it. "Everything's with my attorney," I said. "The funeral's tomorrow at 11. Get some rest, Denise." I closed the door gently. Gently was harder. At 9:15, Kyle texted me for the first time since his brother died. "No condolences then, none now. Whatever you think you're doing, tomorrow is about Aaron. Don't embarrass this family. Don't embarrass this family." 5 days of silence, and that was the sentence he chose. I didn't answer. I stood at my printer until almost 2 a.m., feeding it pages, eating crackers over the sink because my stomach wouldn't take anything with weight. My hands shook badly enough that I misfiled the same page 3 times, and I remember thinking, absurdly, that I would never have accepted this filing quality from myself at work. 3 folders went into my tote bag. I sat on the edge of my bed and understood, with total clarity, the shape of the choice in front of me. I could sign tomorrow. Keep being sweetheart. Buy the mahogany piece. Stay the woman who was so good to them. And be quietly devoured for 1 more decade. Or I could refuse, out loud, in a funeral home, in front of all of them, and become the villain of every story that family would tell for the rest of their lives. I turned off the lamp. I chose villain. Brandt and Sons funeral home smells like lilies and lemon oil. We sat around a walnut table at 11 a.m. sharp, me, Denise, Frank, Kyle, with Walter Brandt at the head. 3rd-generation funeral director, gray mustache, the unhurried kindness of a man who has watched 1,000 families come apart in that exact room and outlived every argument. Denise arrived with a binder, tabbed, like a wedding planner. She picked the mahogany casket from the catalog without asking anyone. The premium floral package, casket spray, standing arrangements, and altar pieces. She read aloud, like a woman ordering for the table. A catered reception for 200 guests. 200. Aaron didn't know 200 people. Denise wanted an audience. Through all of it, she kept saying, "Only the best for my son," patting under her dry eyes with a folded tissue. And Frank kept nodding, and Kyle kept his arms crossed and his eyes on me. Mr. Brandt totaled it in soft pencil. "With the plot opening and the reception, you're at approximately 23,000. We would need 8,000 today to begin preparations for Saturday." And Denise, without a glance at me, without one word to me, reached into her purse and pulled out a card and slid it across the desk like she owned it. My card. The grocery card. Sky blue. My name embossed on the front, facing up, facing all of them. "We'll take the full package," she said. Mr. Brandt ran it at the sideboard terminal. The machine considered and beeped, unhappy. "I'm sorry, ma'am, it's declined." "Run it again." He ran it again. The same beep. Declined. Her smile did something I had never seen it do in 11 years. It twitched, one corner pulling down and snapping back like a curtain lifted and dropped. Then she laughed, a bright hostess laugh for Mr. Brandt's benefit, and turned to the table. "There's clearly a mistake. My daughter-in-law is good for it." And she looked at me at last, with all of them following her eyes. Frank, Kyle, Mr. Brandt still holding my dead husband's $23,000 bill. And she smiled the Thanksgiving smile and said, "Tell him, sweetheart." I stood up slowly, so nobody would mistake what came next for an outburst. I wanted every word to arrive on time and in order, the way documents do. "There's no mistake, Denise. Every account you've ever touched. I closed them all on Monday. Nobody moved. The air conditioner hummed. I took the first folder out of my tote and set it on the walnut table. Monday morning, I closed the joint accounts and removed every authorized user. That card stopped being yours at 9:41 a.m. I watched the branch manager click the button. The truck insurance ends this cycle, Frank. Kyle, your phone number comes off my plan Friday. They'll text you instructions, if it still receives texts." "How dare," Denise started. I set down the second folder, and I opened it, because I had tabbed it too. "Two can own a binder. Camille Adler, 2.5 years. Here's the bracelet. $1,400 on my joint card. The month I worked Saturdays to pay for your Christmas presents. Here's the hotel 20 minutes from my house, on my 10th wedding anniversary, while he told me he was in Denver. And here," I turned one page, "is your group chat. All 4 of you and her. 22 months of it. That's your heart emoji, Denise. March 14th. I looked at Frank. You told me in that hospital she was his friend of years and it meant nothing. Your group chat wished her happy birthday. It has cake." Frank looked at the table. Kyle had gone the color of the lilies. "And this," I said, and I read it flat. "No performance. The way you read terms into a record. She'll sign anything if you're sweet about it. She always has. You wrote that to your son in April, Denise, while you were coaching him to move money before he left me. I want you to know it's my favorite, because you were right. I signed for the groceries. I signed for the truck. I signed for 11 years. I closed the folder. I'm done signing." Denise's voice came out low. "You would do this to your own husband, to his memory. He stopped being my husband 2.5 years ago," I said. "Everyone at this table knew it before I did. You didn't lose a son on Friday and gain a problem. You lost lost your funding and you can't tell the difference. That's not grief, Denise. That's an outage. Then I turned to Mr. Brandt, who had stood through all of it with his hands folded, watching with what I would later recognize as the professional calm of a man who has seen this exact meeting more times than he will ever say. Mr. Brandt, one question. Am I obligated to pay for any of this? No, ma'am, he said gently. Responsibility for payment rests with whoever signs the authorization. A small pause, immaculately neutral. He turned. Mrs. Calloway, the elder Mrs. Calloway, would you like to proceed with the arrangements as selected? The silence lasted 11 seconds. I counted, out of spite. I picked up my folders. My attorney's information for the estate, Mr. Brandt. Funeral costs are a claim against the estate, and she'll walk you through what it can actually support, which is a dignified service, and none of this. I nodded at the catalog, still open to mahogany. I'm not the estate, and I'm not the family plan. Not anymore. I thanked him. I walked out past the casket showroom into a flat gray Wednesday, and I sat in my Camry in the parking lot until my hands were still enough to drive, which took 11 minutes. And I did not cry, and I have thought a lot about why not, and I think it's because you can't grieve a marriage at the same funeral twice. Here's the epilogue, because I know you want it, and because Aaron's family taught me that people deserve to know how the accounts settle. The service happened the following Tuesday. Cremation, a rented fellowship hall, 60 folding chairs, grocery store carnations, no catering. Denise signed for it, so Denise paid for it. I attended for 40 minutes, sat in the back row with Megan, and left before the receiving line, which was short. Camille did not come. To this day, she has never said one word to me, and I've decided in a way I can't fully defend that this makes her the most honest member of that family. She never once pretended to love me. The estate went through probate exactly the way Diane Kessler said it would. Aaron's business float account held $3,112. Against a $23,000 vision, it was insolvent before the first claim. Against a modest service, it did what it could. The letters of administration, the creditor claims, the accounting, Diane walked every step, and every time Denise's new lawyer sent a letter with the word entitled in it, Diane answered it in language that cost them money to receive. The visa in my name died the way fraud is supposed to die, slowly, in paperwork. Detective Nguyen's report number, the FTC affidavit, the bank's fraud unit, and 6 weeks later, a letter confirming the account was closed as fraudulent, the balance zeroed, the trade line blocked from my credit file under Section 605B. I keep the letter in the folder. Third copy. Cornerstone Life assigned my claim to a specialist named Dana Whitfield, who called me on a Thursday to confirm the details and paused, delicately, before telling me there was an unsubmitted change of beneficiary form associated with the policy file. Unsubmitted forms have no legal effect, she said. You are the sole beneficiary of record. The $250,000 paid out in full, into an account with one name on it. 3 weeks. He'd been 3 weeks from moving it. I try not to do the math on that, and I do the math on it about once a week. The consequences landed where they should, in the sizes they should. Nobody's life was destroyed. That's not how this works, and honestly, it's better. Frank's truck sat in the driveway for a month before he bought his own policy like a grown man. Kyle's number disconnected on a Friday. Denise texted me exactly once more, 9 days after the funeral. The TV isn't working. Not an apology. Not his name. A service complaint sent to the utility she'd mistaken me for. I didn't answer it, and the silence since has been the most honest conversation that family and I have ever had. I kept the house. My salary had qualified for it alone because my salary had been carrying it alone. The refinance into my name closed in March, and I signed at my own company, at my own table, and my coworker who notarized it didn't ask why I laughed at the signature line. I sent a card to the ICU at Riverside Memorial, addressed to charge nurse Marisol Vega. She had bent a rule in a hallway for a stranger. Walk in there with your eyes open. And it was the only mercy anyone showed me that entire week. I wrote, "You were right. They were open. Thank you." She never wrote back. She didn't need to. And sometimes on Sunday mornings, I sit in my kitchen, mine, the word finally load-bearing, and I think about the waiting room, 4 hours in a plastic chair, surrounded by people who knew. And I think about the first word out of my mother-in-law's mouth when I walked in on the worst night of my life. Not my name, not, "I'm sorry," finally. For 11 years, she was waiting on me. For the deposit, the groceries, the insurance, the signature, Sweetheart will handle it. And then one Wednesday, in a funeral home that smelled like lilies, Sweetheart stood up, and the woman who spent a decade mistaking me for a bank account learned what every bank eventually teaches. An account you never paid into does finally close.